There are some people in this world who seem like they were built for the spotlight. People whose talent, personality, and story all come together in a way that just makes sense. Tyler Henry was one of those people. Young, gifted, charming, and carrying something inside him that most of us will never fully understand. His career was on fire. His name was everywhere. And to anyone watching from the outside, it looked like nothing could stop him. But life has a way of reminding us that no one is untouchable. Behind all the cameras, behind the sold-out shows and the glowing reviews and the fans who lined up just to be in the same room as him, something was quietly going wrong. His body was sending signals that he could not ignore. And what followed was not just one scary moment. It was a series of them, each one more serious than the last, stretching across years and pushing him to his absolute limit. This is the full story of Tyler Henry. Where he came from, how he rose, what he went through, and where things stand right now. Tyler Henry was born on January 13, 1996, in a small, quiet town in California called Hanford. It is the kind of place where everybody knows everybody, where life moves slowly and days tend to blur together. For most kids growing up there, childhood was simple and predictable. Tyler started out the same way. Normal house, normal family, normal life. At least, that is how it looked. But when Tyler was around 10 years old, something happened that changed everything. One night, out of nowhere, he woke up with the strangest feeling. It was not a bad dream. It was not anxiety. It was something much harder to explain. He felt, deep in his gut, that something was wrong with his grandmother. Not just wrong. He felt like she was going to die. The feeling was so strong and so clear that it did not feel like a thought at all. It felt more like a memory of something that had already happened, even though it had not happened yet. He tried to tell his mother. He stumbled over his words because he did not know how to explain something that made no logical sense. He was a child. He did not have the vocabulary for premonitions or clairvoyance. All he knew was that something inside him was screaming. Then the phone rang. His father was on the other end. Tyler's grandmother had just passed away. That night became the moment that divided Tyler's life into two parts. Before and after. He did not understand what had happened. He did not have answers. He just knew that whatever was going on inside him was real, and that his life was never going to look like everyone else's. As he got older, the experiences kept coming, and with them came confusion, fear, and a lot of judgment from people around him. Growing up in a conservative community meant that his abilities were not always seen as a gift. Some people thought what he could do was fascinating. Others thought it was something dark, something dangerous, something to be afraid of. Being a kid who is already trying to figure out who he is, and then being told that part of you is something to be feared is incredibly hard. Tyler dealt with bullying, with isolation, and with a long and painful search for self-acceptance. Middle school was rough. High school added new layers of tension. He was different, and in a small town, being different has a price. But Tyler did not shrink. He leaned in. He started quietly doing readings for classmates and teachers at his high school. Word spread. People were curious. Some were skeptical. Some were moved. Outside of school, he started offering private sessions, charging around $40 each. He also spent time at a local shop where he helped people dealing with grief, connecting with mentors who recognized early on that he had something special. Not just an unusual ability, but real emotional intelligence and a genuine desire to help. He eventually switched to homeschooling so he could move faster and focus more fully on his work. By the time he was 16, he had already graduated. He then went on to study at West Hills College with the goal of becoming a hospice nurse. For most people, that might seem like an unexpected career choice for someone with his abilities. But for Tyler, it made complete sense. He wanted to be with people at the hardest moments of their lives. He wanted to offer something real, something that went beyond just a reading. While he was studying, something else was quietly building in the background. 200 miles away in Los Angeles, word of his abilities was spreading through certain circles. He connected with a talent agent and then a publicist. What started as small local readings began turning into private sessions for celebrities. Hollywood was paying attention. The turning point came in 2013 at a Christmas party in Beverly Hills. Tyler met an Emmy-winning actor and TV host named Michael Corbett. Corbett was skeptical. He agreed to a private reading mostly out of curiosity. By the end of that session, skepticism had turned into something else entirely, and a big idea was forming. Corbett saw the potential for a television show, a real one, something that could bring Tyler's work to a massive audience. Around that same time, life handed Tyler a brutal reminder of how fragile everything really is. In 2014, he suffered a stroke. The cause was a brain cyst he had been living with since birth, without even knowing it existed. He was rushed to the hospital and told by doctors that he needed to stay completely still. Any sudden movement could have killed him. Surgery followed. For a young man who had spent years thinking about death, studying it, connecting with it through his readings, actually facing it himself was something completely different. It was not spiritual. It was terrifying, physical, raw. It forced him to understand the difference between knowing about something and actually going through it. He survived. He recovered. And he came out on the other side with a much deeper appreciation for how fragile life truly is. Not long after, in 2015, he appeared on Keeping Up with the Kardashians, where he did a reading that connected the family to their late father, Robert Kardashian Sr. The moment hit hard and introduced Tyler to one of the biggest audiences in reality television history. By 2016, with Michael Corbett on board as executive producer and Entertainment Television backing the project, Tyler had his own show. Hollywood Medium with Tyler Henry was born. He was 19 years old. The kid from Hanford was now a television star. The show moved fast. One celebrity after another, each carrying their own grief and their own questions. It was emotional, intense, and impossible to look away from. But along with the attention came the critics. There has always been a group of people who look at Tyler Henry and see not a medium, but a performer. Their argument is straightforward. They believe that before the cameras ever start rolling, Tyler has already done deep research on whoever he is about to read. Names, family backgrounds, old interviews, social media posts. All of it available, all of it useful. To them, it is not a gift. It is homework. Others point to the technique itself, something called cold reading. This is where someone makes broad statements, watches how the other person reacts, and slowly narrows things down based on the feedback they receive. It sounds simple, but it can be incredibly effective. Some people have gone through his recorded readings frame by frame, pointing out moments where they believe he was fishing for information or following cues from the person in front of him. And there were moments that gave even open-minded people pause. A live show observer claimed Tyler appeared to glance at a hidden monitor, as if he was being fed information from offstage. There were predictions that did not age well. His reading with Khloe Kardashian, where he suggested her relationship was on solid ground, came right before a very public and very painful cheating scandal. When it happened, Tyler suggested he had actually sensed trouble all along. Critics had a field day with that one. But here is the interesting part. Tyler does not fight back hard against the critics. He has openly said that skepticism is healthy, and that he considers himself a skeptical person too. The production team has always insisted that Tyler never knows who he is reading in advance. Names are not even used in production meetings. Everyone gets a code. If that is true, then the research theory falls apart pretty quickly. And then there is the brain scan study. Dr. Drew Pinsky had Tyler's brain scanned during a session. What they found was not proof of supernatural ability, but it was strange. His brain activity shifted into something that looked almost like a sleep state, even though he was fully awake and talking. That does not explain what Tyler does. But it does suggest something unusual is happening, whatever it is. What is not up for debate is the emotional weight of his work. Whether you believe in his abilities or not, the people sitting across from him are clearly affected, deeply affected. They cry. They feel seen. They walk away lighter. And for many of them, that matters more than any explanation. By 2019, Tyler was bigger than ever. He launched a live tour called Life Lessons I've Learned from the Departed, taking his work into packed theaters across the country. It was more than a show. It was a full experience, part storytelling, part live reading, part reflection. The audiences loved it. Everything was building towards something bigger. And then, early in 2020, he was lying in bed, getting mentally ready for one of his shows when a sharp pain hit his chest. One of his lungs had completely collapsed. It was not a minor issue. Without immediate help, it could have been fatal. Instead of walking onto a stage that night, Tyler was rushed to the hospital. He spent months recovering. It was another moment where the physical reality of his life crashed into the version of himself that the world saw on television. He came back. He always comes back. And when he did, he brought a new live experience focused on hope and healing. The message behind it was simple. He did not just want to amaze people. He wanted to leave them better than he found them. In 2022, after launching his Netflix series Life After Death with Tyler Henry, he published his second book, called Here and Hereafter. It was not just a memoir. It was more of a guide, pulling together lessons he had learned from years of connecting with people who had lived full lives and passed on. The central idea was about not waiting, not saving things for later, learning from the regrets of others before it is too late. For Tyler personally, the book was also about learning to live with trauma rather than trying to erase it. Then in 2023, after weeks of constant headaches that would not let up, doctors discovered something serious. A mass he had been living with since birth had become a real and immediate threat to his life. Surgery was scheduled. Another chapter added to a list that was already longer than it should have been for someone his age. But the hardest chapter was still coming. By early 2025, Tyler was preparing for a major multi-state tour. Dates were set. Everything was lined up. And then once again, his body forced him to stop. Another brain surgery had become necessary. Just 1 week after marrying his partner Clint Godwin, Tyler revealed that he had undergone surgery to remove a colloid tumor located near the center of his brain. The tumor was not cancerous, but it was serious. It had been causing intense headaches, dizziness, and vertigo. The surgery went well, and Tyler stayed positive, expressing gratitude for the care he received and for the outcome. He was back within 2 weeks, announcing a virtual group reading. For him, stepping away completely was not an option. He has said that doing readings is something he feels compelled to do from the inside. Without that outlet, something feels off, like pressure with nowhere to go. But the year was not finished with him yet. A few months after that procedure, Tyler began experiencing new symptoms. His brain was swelling. Fluid was building up around it. The condition is known as hydrocephalus, and it required yet another surgery. His third brain operation. There were real concerns going into it. Any procedure involving the brain carries serious risk. And for Tyler, there was an added layer of worry. Would it affect his abilities? Would something fundamental change about the way his mind works? After the surgery, he shared something surprising. He said that once the inflammation was treated, he actually felt clearer than he had in years. Like something heavy had been lifted. Like noise he had been living with for so long he had stopped noticing it was finally gone. But the recovery was hard. One of the most disorienting side effects was short-term memory loss. For a period of time, Tyler could not hold onto information for more than a few minutes. He later compared it to living with the memory span of a goldfish. It was frustrating and deeply unsettling for someone whose entire work depends on memory, perception, and mental clarity. Slowly, things started to come back. His memory returned. He began to reflect on what he had been through, including what he described as out-of-body moments during surgery. Experiences he plans to share when the time feels right. Then, in January 2026, Tyler Henry turned 30. For most people, a 30th birthday is a party, a milestone, maybe a little bit of existential reflection. For Tyler, it carried far more weight than that. After everything his body had put him through across his 20s, the multiple surgeries, the collapsed lung, the memory loss, the health scare after health scare, simply being here to mark the occasion felt like something worth acknowledging. He looked back on his 20s and saw a decade of extremes. Incredible highs paired with moments that nearly broke him. A career that most people only dream about. alongside health battles that most people never face. But through all of it, one thing stayed constant: connection. The connection to the people who showed up for him. The fans, the community, the people who kept watching and kept reaching out even when things went quiet. He expressed deep gratitude for that. And as he stepped into his 30s, there was something new in how he talked about the future. Not just cautious optimism. Something more genuine than that. A real appreciation for the fact that he is still here. Still working. Still connecting. For Tyler Henry, that alone means everything.